Now I'm sure we can all remember being young. Tell me anything better than your grandmother's cooking. You can smell it coming through the kitchen. You run through to investigate, see what's coming up, open the pot, and what's waiting for you? A human head. Now, I would hope that doesn't bring back any fond memories of being at your granny's and finding a human head, but this wasn't your average granny. This was the Granny Ripper. Tamara Samsonova was born February 5th, 1947 in Weser, Krasnoyarsk Krai. Now I'm sorry if I absolutely butchered that spelling, I couldn't find pronunciation online anywhere for it. Believe it or not, back then she wasn't known as the infamous Granny Ripper, just Tamara. She graduated from high school as any normal human would do, you know. Her education continued and she entered the Moscow State Linguistic University. It is the largest and the oldest university in Russia that specialises in linguistics and foreign languages. There are about 10,000 students and postgraduates in the university. Education is available in 35 languages. Don't tell me I've not sold you on it.
I'm out. Whoa! That was a fast.
After graduating, she moved to St. Petersburg. This is where she married Alexei Samsonova. In 1971, she and her husband settled in a newly built panel house in number 4 Dimitrov Street. Life seemed pretty normal, well at least from the outside. Samsonova worked in the tourist industry, primarily in the Grand Hotel Europe. Upon retirement, it was estimated that the amount of work experience she had gathered was just 16 years. Talk about having your feet up. "29 years passed by. It's now the year 2000. Tamara is now 53 and this is when her reign of terror begins. Her husband of 29 years, Alex, disappears. Tamara herself appeals to the police to find him, but they yielded nothing. She told police at the time that he had met another woman. Quite a glaring motive for murder if you ask me. It's not clear exactly what happened to Alex, but one can imagine it wasn't pretty. 3 years passed since her husband's disappearance. To make up for the lost income, or just being lonely, or to lure in potential victims, she begins renting out a room in her apartment. Now it's apparent that she did not get on well with whoever was staying in her apartment, as on the 6th of September 2003, a quarrel resulted in the tenant, a 44-year-old from Norilsk, having the same fate as her husband. This time, however, he didn't vanish into thin air. His corpse was found dismembered and disposed on the street. 15 years have now passed since Tamara's first murder. She's caught another body in the way, and she's showing no sign in slowing down or getting caught. The trails went dry on both her husband and her lodger. Tamara meets 79-year-old Valentina Ulanova, who too was living on Dimitrov Street. At this point, Tamara's house is a shithole. It's looking like the bando, and for this reason it's been renovated. A mutual friend of the two asked Ulanova to shelter Samsonova during the glow-up, which she unfortunately obliged to. Boy, what a mistake that was. Time rolls on, and she ends up staying in Ulanova's apartment for several months. She liked it there so much that she refused to leave. Talk about making yourself at home. More time passed, and Tamara just straight up refused to leave.
I'm not leaving.
Nope, she wasn't budging.
I'm not fucking leaving!
She was well and truly a nightmare tenant. The relationship deteriorated, and Tamara decided that she wouldn't be the one who was parting with the house. Tamara travelled to Pushkin, where she used some finesse to convince a pharmacist to sell her a prescription drug, phenazepam. Man, they really gotta watch these people they be serving. She returned back to the city. Upon her arrival, she bought her roommate her favourite meal, an Oliver salad. Now, for those who have never heard of or even tasted an Oliver salad, just like me, it is basically a traditional Russian salad, usually made with diced boiled potatoes, carrots, cucumber, and a whole lot of other shit. I wouldn't want to eat it personally, but if that's up your street then fire on. Recipes are easily found online. Anyway, Tamara makes it home and gives her best friend Ulanova her salad. She eats the salad and thinks nothing of it. This right here is why you should think twice about accepting spontaneous gifts from your flatmate who you're at war with, especially the food type. You see, that salad wasn't the traditional version. Tamara had tweaked the ingredients just slightly. It contained the phenazepam pills. These pills were enough to kill her. Ulanova lay dead on the kitchen floor on the night of July 23rd. From here, Tamara Samsonova proceeded to dismember her. using 2 knives and a saw. She started off the bloodbath by sawing off the victim's head, then sawing the body in half before eventually using the knives to shear it into smaller pieces. Parts of the victim were placed in black plastic bags, some parts wrapped in curtain from the apartment, and most notably a cooking pot, which contained the head. Ulanova's decapitated body, along with several limbs, were found on the evening of July 26 near a pond at house number 10 on Dimitrov Street. Wrapped up in a bathroom curtain, it sat undetected for days until someone eventually took interest in its contents. I bet they regret snooping in that curtain now. A day after being discovered, the identity was established. A survey of apartment residents ended up with authorities knocking on Ulanova's apartment. Of course, to only find Tamara there. The police entered and found traces of blood in the bathroom, and the real giveaway, fastening from the torn off curtain, that the victim was of course wrapped up in. It was game over for the now pensioner. CCTV captured Tamara removing parts of her victim from the apartment, most notably the head, in the pot that I mentioned before. One can only imagine the meal she was planning on making with that. Perhaps another tweak on the Oliver salad? Police had no other option except to put Tamara into custody for suspicion of murder. They really caught her in 4K this time. Further investigation resulted in police finding something that would prove Tamara was guilty beyond any reasonable doubt, as if there wasn't enough already, as well as solve previous investigations. Sitting alongside books on astrology and black magic was a diary. Now this wasn't your average teenager diary, confessing who you loved for that week or what drama had happened at school. This motherfucker was jam-packed, full of ins and outs of murder. And not just one murder, multiple. The entries into her diary weren't written in just her native Russian, no. These things were taken on a trip around the world, written in fluent Russian, German and English. Some notable entries into the diary include: slept badly, drank coffee, take medicines, I do not eat. I feel like a language teacher in a school somewhere was maybe the more reasonable path for her to have taken. Another more notable entry from the diary, from 2003 read: I killed my tenant Volodya, cut him into pieces in the bathroom with a knife and put the pieces of his body in plastic bags, threw them away in different parts of the Frezensky district. Now if the shoe fits, 2003 was the year that the tenant who was crashing with her was murdered. Remember the one that I mentioned earlier? The diary entry matched the murder case the police were investigating for a 44-year-old man that same year. The tattoo on his body matched with one mentioned in the journal, pinning her to the murder. When investigating the books that were found with the diary, police realised that pages from her black magic book were missing. These pages were found to be the exact spell pages that were left with Volodya's remains, indicating that dark magic was the source in the murder. Samsonova confessed to another 21 additional murders while living in the apartment. This, however, may be bullshit, as the exact number of bodies is unconfirmed at this time. Police believe that number is something closer to 11, based off of her diary. This includes several other lodgers and her mother-in-law, who all vanished suddenly and with no explanation. Let's be honest here, the chances are that she killed them. She straight up refuses to cooperate with investigators to solve these other cases. One source stating, we may never really know the extent of these granny's killings. Marina Kravchenko, who lived next door to Samsonova, said the Granny Ripper was interested in Soviet serial killer Andrei Chikatilo, who was executed in 1994. He was the Soviet Union's worst ever maniac, a bloodthirsty vampire who murdered, sexually assaulted and cannibalized at least 55, in a reign of terror stretching over a dozen years. He too violated the bodies of his victims, chopping off their tongues, bursting their eardrums and gouging out their eyes. It's clear that Tamara took inspiration from him, given what she would too do to her victims. During her time in court, Tamara was calm, perhaps even quite flirty, blowing kisses to the reporters in the courtroom. Now I know for a fact I wouldn't have been able to keep my cool if I was in that courtroom and she was blowing kisses at me. She saved us all the hassle of having to prove the obvious and pleaded, drumroll please, guilty. Tamara stated that she deserved the punishment she was going to receive. Fucking right, she deserved the punishment she was going to receive. She told the jury that Valentina Ulanova was her final victim, closing the chapter of killing in her life. Now was maybe the time for the granny to take up knitting. Strangely of all, it may have just been an effort to gain fame as a notorious serial killer, kill ruthlessly and outrageously to leave a legacy, and be remembered forever. Tamara boasted to friends, I will be popular and famous. telling him that one day she would cause a sensation. Boy, she did certainly cause a sensation, just not in a good way. Tamara has since been detained in the Kazan psychiatric hospital. Now this shit right here is exactly why you don't judge a book by its cover. Be careful out here, people. That old granny maybe ain't as sweet as she seems. Take it easy.